joining us and sharing that insight. Now we move on to our next story. Israeli forces have recovered the bodies of 2 hostages held by Hamas in a special operation in Khan Younis, Gaza. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu confirmed the victims as Judy Weinstein Haggai and her husband Gad Haggai. Their bodies have been returned to Israel. Authorities say 56 hostages remain in Hamas's custody, with fewer than half believed to be still alive. Judy Weinstein, aged 70, and her husband Gad Haggai, aged 72, were longtime residents of Kibbutz Nir Oz, near the Gaza border. They were killed during Hamas' October 7th attack while out for a morning walk. Weinstein, a New York-born teacher, and Haggai, a retired chef and a musician, leave behind 4 children and 7 grandchildren. On the international front, the United States has vetoed a UN Security Council resolution calling for an immediate, unconditional, and permanent ceasefire in Gaza. The resolution also urged unrestricted aid access and the release of hostages, but the US called it a non-starter without a link to hostage release. Meanwhile, GHF aid sites in Gaza remain closed amid repairs after deadly Israeli strikes near Rafah. Israel warns roads to sites are now combat zones as the humanitarian crisis worsens. Now we have guest Peter Baum. He's a foreign editor from Weekly Blitz, joining us live from London. Thank you, Peter, for joining us today. How might the recovery of the hostage bodies affect efforts to secure the release of remaining captives in Gaza?
Yes, now naturally the IDF managed to obtain the bodies of these 2 victims who were brutally slaughtered by Hamas, and that could have only been done through their own network of Shin Bet, who must have received the information from Hamas operatives whom they have captured. Now clearly this is to be welcomed, but as you quite rightly pointed out, there are still a number of hostages, many of whom are dead, whom the Israeli public want the Israeli government to retrieve from captivity. And it is this one issue, I assure you and all your viewers and listeners, that if Hamas were to have released all the hostages, whether it was immediately after October the 7th or before now, this ghastly war in Gaza would have been brought to an end, and there would have been no need for the UN Security Council resolutions calling for an immediate ceasefire, because the ceasefire will only happen once all the hostages have been released. Of that, I have no doubt. There is one other thing. There were some rumours a couple of days ago, even a couple of weeks ago, that the Trump administration and the Netanyahu administration were not seeing eye to eye with each other, and that there was much press reports about Trump changing his mind about support for Netanyahu. I think we can see quite clearly, given the veto that the US imposed yesterday on the Security Council resolution, that that is not the case, and in fact Trump is fully committed to supporting the Netanyahu's policy.
And Peter, let's dive a little bit deeper into that. What are the broader implications of the US veto on the UN ceasefire resolution for diplomatic efforts in the region, according to you?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think the many members of the UN Security Council actually support what Trump and Netanyahu are doing, but cannot be seen to do so diplomatically, and therefore they actually understand that the US will veto any such similar resolution. So behind the scenes, Israel's allies, and I include the United Kingdom and France, despite their recent anti-Netanyahu rhetoric, are secretly pleased that Israel are continuing with this war in Gaza, but because they face domestic pressure, so they cannot be seen to be supporting Israel, although behind the scenes they do. Now, as long as Hamas continue with their stubbornness, this state of affairs will continue. That's the way it is, because the objective now of the Netanyahu government, and the only way he can be stopped is by domestic pressure internally within Israel. The objective of the Netanyahu government is to completely destroy two objectives: to have all the hostages released, and to completely destroy Hamas militarily. And I think one goes hand in hand with the other.
Thank you very much, Peter Baum, for joining us and sharing that insight.